Sounds good.
All right, welcome everyone to today's live webinar, Intro to Microsoft Word, Part 3. This is the last part of the 3-part series that we've covered with Microsoft Word. My name is Rebecca Van Dusen, and I'm a library associate here at the Champaign Public Library. Joining me today to teach the webinar is Susan Winkler, our technology librarian. Before we get started, I just want to go over a couple of things to do with Zoom, and then we'll go ahead and jump right in. So on your Zoom screen, you're going to see a couple of icons once you move your mouse sort of near the bottom of that screen. To the left side, you'll have a microphone button, which will let you change your options for your microphone or your speaker. Towards the center middle there, you'll see a chat bubble icon and a raise hand icon. So those two buttons will help you ask questions to us through the webinar. So if you hit the chat button, that will let you type in the chat. So while Susan is teaching and demonstrating during the webinar, feel free to type messages in the chat if you have questions. I'll be in the background helping to answer those questions, as well as posing those to Susan. So if you have a question, please write that in the chat. Don't feel like you're interrupting us. We're here to answer those questions for you. And it's also helpful too, because then I can pose them to Susan and we can do things like cover something again, or help answer a more specific question about something. The raise hand option or raise hand button is another option that we have for asking a question. So we usually use that one in case you wanted to speak your question out loud rather than having to type it. I know sometimes questions are sort of more complicated or harder to type out and you'd rather use your microphone. So feel free to raise your hand and that will indicate to me that you'd rather speak out your question than typing it. Yeah, basically don't be afraid to ask questions. That's what we're here for. You'll also see a button that says CC down at the bottom. That is for you to turn on or off the transcriptions. So you probably see as we go throughout the webinar, our text at the bottom that's just transcribing what we're saying as we're saying it. Just sort of a helpful way to help more people get into the webinar. Of course, you can turn those off if you don't want them on, or turn them on if you have them off, and you'll use that CC button. I should also mention that we are recording this webinar, so if you want to watch it again, go over things again, we're going to have this up on our YouTube channel. We'll also send it out as an email to all attendees today, so that you'll have the link to that once it's ready to go up. So sometimes people like to watch the webinar, kind of let it wash over them, and then they like to revisit it with the recording later. I know for me, sometimes it helps to watch things twice just to take in everything. I know we're probably going to be throwing a lot of information at you today. And then also, if you watch the recording, you can, help do things in real time. So we like to have those recordings available as soon as possible. And I think that's pretty much all I have to say. Let's go ahead and welcome Susan. How are you, Susan?
Hi, I'm doing well, Rebecca. How about yourself?
I'm doing pretty good.
All right, glad to hear it. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. As Rebecca said, this is our Intro to Microsoft Word series, and this is part 3 of the series. If you'd like to see part 1 and part 2, if you happen to miss those are up on our YouTube channel, as Rebecca mentioned. To get there, you can go to champaign.org/YouTube, and that'll take you to the list of playlists for both our stuff here, the tech workshops, then also things like our Crafty Adults programs, Writers Workshop programs, tech, career and business, and a lot of the other stuff that we've been generating recordings for over the last couple of years. Today, we are going to jump more specifically into spending a lot of time with the Insert tab in Microsoft Word, but we will go through an agenda here in just a moment. I'm going to go ahead and bring up my PowerPoint and share my screen.
I'll also mention that I'm going to put the link to the handout in the chat right now, so that if you want to follow along as Susan's going through, you'll have access to the slides through that link.
And then you also, if you'd like a printed version of that, you can let us know either through email or call us and let us know, and you can pick it up curbside. We can print those out for free too. Okay, so today, Word 3. All right, so we will mention and talk just a little bit about the different versions of Microsoft Word. I've started each of these with those just so everybody kind of has a base place to start from. There are a couple of different versions of Word now. We're going to go over what document type is and how to select a different type of document or use a template. We'll talk a little bit briefly about how to save documents and save and save as. And then we're going to jump right into our content for today. We're going to spend a lot of time on the insert tab, and we're going to be doing some formatting of different things that we put into a document. So we're going to insert and talk about how to format page numbers, where you can put them, how you can change them, what they'll look like. We will insert a header and a footer. And then we're going to do multiple things to images, text boxes, shapes, and symbols and special characters. And you'll notice that even though this seems like a lot of information to throw out there for these 5 topics here, you'll notice that there's a lot of similarity once we've gone through inserting and resizing and moving and cropping images. You're going to notice it's very similar to do the same things to a text box or a shape and or a special character. Okay, so you'll notice there'll be a little bit of repetition, which I think is also a great thing to have for a tech workshop, because the more you can repeat a task or repeat a process, the more likely it's going to be that it'll stick with you for the next time. So, okay, any questions before we begin? So most of today will be live demo, but I will try to come back to the handout a couple of times so you can see stuff slightly bigger than it will be on the screen too, because I think that's sometimes kind of helpful. Okay.
I don't see any questions so far.
Okay, perfect. So the different versions of Microsoft Word. If you have an Outlook account, if you've gotten a free Outlook account, which you can get just by going to outlook.com, you can get a free version of Microsoft 365. And Microsoft 365 includes access to an online version of Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and Outlook, Mail, and then some other stuff as well. So you don't have as many features as you would with a paid Microsoft 365 account, but there is a free version that you can get to and use. You do need to have an online connection for that free version, meaning you do have to be actively connected to the internet, either through Wi-Fi or a hardwired connection. Okay. The different paid version does have different paid plans, including for home and or for business use. And you can put more than, if it's a home plan, you can also have multiple family members using it. It does give you access to a little bit more advanced functionality, and you can edit your documents offline with that version. If you do want to compare the plans, you can just go to Microsoft.com and then check out Microsoft 365, and it'll show you all the products that you can possibly get that are paid versions. Okay, there's also the Microsoft Office Home and Student Edition, which is not cloud-based software. That is software that you can download and have on your computer and then use it without having the internet access. So the online versions do allow you to do some collaborative stuff, and there are some advantages because it saves things immediately. But a lot of people do prefer the version that's actually on and installed on their desktop computer, because then they can use it on a laptop anywhere and don't necessarily have to have an internet connection. The current version of that includes Word 2019, Excel 2019, and PowerPoint 2019. What we're using for our workshops is 2016, which is just one version before that. So everything we're covering today will be available in Word 2016 or some previous versions of Word. You may also have like 2013 or even older versions of Word. That's okay. A lot of the stuff is going to be the same or similar. Okay. All right. Questions about the different versions of Word?
I don't see anything.
Okay. Once they added online capability, it did kind of open up the world of being able to do things online and collaboratively make a text document and then do things and edit it live. So, okay. So the first thing we're going to do today is we're actually going to open a blank document, and then we're going to talk about opening a templated document and the differences between those two options. And then we'll spend a little time on saving and how to save those documents and using save as versus save. And I do this each time in the 3-part series, just because this is one of those most important concepts to grasp when you're working within Microsoft Word or any program where you're going to be saving files. So we'll go through that, and then I'll have time for questions. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and switch to stop sharing that, and I'll share our Microsoft Word. And I'm going to go ahead and try to share one where I haven't opened it yet. So let's take just a moment here. One moment. I'm going to jump out of that. And I'm going to open a fresh version of Microsoft Word. And hopefully I can share this part with you. Okay, 1 second. Yep. Okay. So I'm hoping you can see the Word screen here where it says blank document and then a bunch of possibilities for templates.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So when you open Microsoft Word for the first, whenever you open it, just to start something new, you're going to see that you could either open a blank document or you can pick from an existing template. The existing templates here, most of them, you might see like a resume, a cover letter, business letter, a fashion brochure, calendar, cat sitter advertisement. If you don't see what you're looking for though, you can also up at the very top here where it says search for online templates, where we've got our little magnifying glass. And if you've taken any of other workshops before, the little magnifying glass, if it doesn't have a plus or a minus in it, magnifying glass means search. So this is where I could search for a specific kind of template if I wanted. So I could put in like cover letter up here. And then this is going to look online in Word's available online database to come up with different cover letter formats that I could use to make a cover letter. And then if I were to open it, I could just go ahead and type over the top with all of my information instead. So if I wanted, a fairly standard accounting resume, I would click on it. So everybody saw what I did there. I selected the one that says accounting, then I clicked once, and then basically you're going to be downloading it from the internet to your version of Microsoft Word that's on your computer. So you would say create, it's going to download it, and then it will pop it up here. I'm hoping now you see it says document 2 up at the top, and we have Donna Robbins with her Main Street Detroit thing.
It's saying document 1.
Okay, you can't see this. Okay, let me stop share that and try to share this one. Okay, how about now? Where it says Donna Robbins, I'm hoping.
Yes, I do see it now.
So I basically downloaded this template, popped it up here, and then this is the template where for us, if we're doing template stuff, we can just click on it, any piece of information, and change it like that. Okay, so that's the nice thing about templates is if you find one that's really going to work for you and do exactly what you need it to do, you can just go ahead and basically replace the information with your own. Okay, so that's a little bit about templates. We'll spend more time with, we can spend time with that too if you have questions about it. If I wanted to save this document, I could come up to File, down to Save As, because this is the first time I'm saving it. Usually you want to use Save As because then you're going to tell it where you want it to live on your computer. So here I can see I have documents and desktop. So I'll hit desktop. I'm going to save this on the desktop and I'm going to call it resume 1 or whatever. I'm going to save it as a Word document and hit save. Okay. Now, if I make any more changes to it, say I change this to, or West Green Street actually, which is the address of the library here. I could do Champaign. I'm hoping you're seeing this type out live. And then Illinois.
Yes.
Oops. Like that. I could, once I've done this change, I'll go ahead and just finish it out here. Oops, sorry. And then we'll do 2000, for example. And then I could just hit up here in the top left corner. Looks a little bit like a floppy disk drive, if anyone remembers what those look like. This little disk up here. I can just hit that save button, or I can hit Control S on my keyboard as a keyboard shortcut to save it. That's going to save these additions that I've just made. If I were to go back to save as, I could make a new version of this resume and could call it resume 2. Then I have 2 versions. I have resume 1 and resume 2. So if I was applying for 2 different positions, I could make resume 1 the resume that's tailored for that first position, and resume 2 tailored for the second position. So maybe my experience and my skills are different, but the basic template stays the same. Okay, does that make sense for saving documents? So I just want everybody to kind of pay attention a little bit to how to save them. Using save as means you create it. You do save as, you tell it where to go. After that, if you don't need a different version of it, you just continue to hit save. If you need a different version of it, use save as. Okay. Good. No questions?
We do have a raise hand. Hold on
Sure,
one second.
yes,
Let me
absolutely.
go ahead and.
Go ahead.
Oh, they just put their hand down. I think it may have been a mistake.
Well, it's good if you can. It's good if you find it, even if you don't actually have a question, or if it turns out you have one later. Now you know where to find it.
Yes. Oh, they got their hand back up. Let me try to allow them to talk one more time.
Sure.
Oh, okay. It says allow to talk is not available because they are using an older version of Zoom. So I don't think we'll be able to unmute your microphone.
So if
I'll chat with them and let them know.
Perfect. Send them a chat, and then if they want to post it in chat, that's fine. Or you can always email us after the webinar too and ask your questions if we have technical difficulties getting it to work for you live too. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and jump out of the resume example, and we'll jump back into the PowerPoint here for a second. So the next section of things that I want to talk about is inserting and formatting page numbers into a document. So page numbers are extremely useful for helping keep your document in order and to refer to specific pages as you're going through something, say in a meeting or with a bunch of other people. So I think it's really important to have page numbers, especially if it's before you get to the stapler and you drop your document on the floor, which honestly with these handouts occasionally I have done, and then putting them back in order is a little tricky unless I have done page numbers. So here at the top, to do page numbers, we're going to go to the Insert tab. And this is actually, Insert is going to be a major tab you'll use anytime you're going to insert anything into your document. So if you're going to insert things like hyperlinks, which is, basically a link to a website, or the header and the footer, which we'll talk about in a few minutes, the text box, the shapes, all of that stuff is going to come from the Insert tab. So we're going to use that a bunch today. So to do page number, it's in the header and footer group, and we'll add page numbers to a document, and then we can choose where we want to place it. So we can put it at the top of the page or the bottom of the page. We can put it in the middle, as you can see here with this screenshot. Now, the big thing to remember with page numbers is if you're putting them in the bottom, then your footer is going to include that page number. If you put it at the top, it's going to be in where your header would be. So when we get to talking about headers and footers and how they work with page numbers, they have to work in tandem with each other. Okay, so then we can also format page numbers by opening the page number icon in the header and footer group, and then picking under the option to format page numbers. Again, you also can use the dialog box here, open that up, and you get the way to select either Roman numerals, you can do alphabetic, you can do letters, numerals, whatever you want. A lot of, if you're, say we're writing a thesis or something too, you might have an appendix and you want that to be numbered differently, excuse me. Or you might want to include a chapter heading, things like that. So you can do all of that with this page number formatting. So let's go ahead and I'll do a live demo. I tell you what, let's go ahead and do header and footer in the handout first, and then I'll do a live demo of all three at the same time. Okay, So to insert a header, again, we're going to be in that insert tab, clicking on the header footer group and picking header. And then you can decide your style for your header. If you want it to be 3 things across the top of the page, if you want to have it have a little bit more, shall we say, flair or style, you can pick a certain style. And then you can you basically type over where the little boxes are that say type here and put in what you need. So when we were looking at that resume a second ago, where the name was across the top, that was in the header. So it was a giant, like Susan Winkler in giant letters, and then the address underneath, that was in the header of the resume, okay? The same thing is true for inserting a footer. They're useful for information that you want to appear on every page, like a document title, your number, or page numbers. So usually if we're doing, say, a professional report, you might include the date down at the bottom in the footer, or you might include, your name or the document name perhaps, so that people can easily find it again, and have that appear on every page. Okay, so the same idea is true for footer. You go into the insert tab, into the group for header and footer, pick your footer, and then you can pick again your style of how you want it to look, and then type over the type here box with your own information. Okay, all right, I'm going to go ahead and show that live and we can take any questions. So I'm going to pick our document that we used last week with the Wonderful Wizard of Oz text. So we're going to share that again. So I'm hoping you can now see the Wonderful Wizard of Oz, Chapter 1, The Cyclone.
Yes, I can see that. Sorry.
Okay. Oh, that's okay. I just wanted confirmation since I'm not looking at it on my other screen. So up here in the top where we have our margin area, this is where we can put our header. And then down below where our margin area is, this is where we can put our footer. And then we can either put page numbers at the top, at the bottom, the middle, wherever we want. So our document here, we have 2 pages right now for the Wonderful Wizard of Oz. And I'm going to insert page numbers, and I'm going to insert them in the bottom right corner. That's usually where I'm used to seeing page numbers. So I'm going to come up here to the Insert tab. Everybody can see that right here. And you'll see the different groups where you can control what you're going to insert. Okay. And when I'm looking here and I see pages, tables, illustrations, we'll do illustrations in a few minutes, and then links and things like that. I come over here a little bit further and I see header and footer. So I'm going to select page number from within the header and footer group. And I'm going to insert them at the bottom of the page. And then here you see I've got some different options if I'm going to just put it to the left, to the middle, or to the right. And for me, I'm just going to put it to the right. I don't need any formatting or accents or fancy stuff right now. So I'm just going to select plain. Now you'll notice what Microsoft Word does is it tells me, okay, we're putting it in your footer, and the footer is just beyond where that margin line is, right here. And over here, you can see it now says 1. And this is automatic. So from that point forward, page 2 is going to have a page 2 on it. Page 3 would have a page 3. If you see here where it says page 2 down here, that's going to keep happening. So if I add a third page to this document, and to do that, I have to hit, if you see up here at the top, this is now opened the design tab. And the design tab will pop up anytime you're formatting something that you've added to a document. So pay attention, you can see that it says this design tab up here. So again, I have my header and footer group, and I have other things that I can do that I can add. So remember, I just mentioned if I wanted to add the date into the footer, here's my whole section where I can add the date and time, the document info, like where you can find the document. And then over here, if I wanted something different on the odd and even pages, or a different first page, or say I didn't want to have the page number on the first page, I could change that. And over here on the side where it says close header and footer, I'm going to go ahead and close the header and footer. So then everyone can see what it looks like with page numbers. If you look down at the bottom here, you'll see the 1 and it's slightly grayed out. So it's in a slightly lighter color down here at the bottom. I'm hoping everybody can see kind of where my cursor is. Bottom left, bottom right corner here, that it's slightly different color. If I want to get into that easily, I can just click on it and I can click twice. And then you'll see I'm back in the footer and I've got that design tab up there, which lets me control what's happening in the footer. Okay, but to get out of it, I have to go ahead and hit close header and footer. Okay. Any questions so far about inserting page numbers?
I don't see any.
Okay, we're going to format them too. So I'm going to come back down here and I'm going to double click. So I'm getting back into my footer where I have this. And when I go to page number over here, now I'm going to come down to format my page numbers. And then my format page number dialog box comes up and I can pick my number format. So let's say instead of 1, 2, 3, I'm going to go with the letters. So we're going to do a lettering system. And I'm going to click OK. And then I'm going to start at a certain page, or I'm going to do it from the previous section. So I'm going to say OK. And now you'll see that my page number changed from 1 to A. And then on the second one, it changed to B. Okay, so that's how you can format those page numbers. Close the header and footer. And now I can go about editing my document and doing whatever I want with it. So I'm going to go ahead and add a header. And to do that, I'm going to go back to that insert tab. And I'm going to go ahead and go over to header and footer and pick header. Now here's where usually when I was writing document for school, I would have to put, my name has to be there somewhere, the teacher's name has to be there somewhere, and the date. So I usually pick the blank 3-column one and then would put my name, the teacher's name. Let's say that's my teacher's name. And then over here, I could put the date. Okay. And then again, I can close the header and footer. And then you'll notice across every page now, this header is going to be the same across every page. So it's going to be my name, the teacher's name, and the date. Okay. Now I can also format the header and the footer too. So if I wanted to, I could highlight it. I can change the size, just like I would anything else. If I right click on it, I can change the text if I wanted to make it a different kind, different size, however I want to change it, I can make those formatting changes. Okay. And to do that, you just click inside the header, double click, and then you can make your changes by highlighting whatever you want to change. Okay. So I'll go ahead and close the header and footer there. Any questions about about headers?
I don't see any.
And again, the headers and footers are useful for helping people track what your document is. It's useful for helping track who's written the document, maybe the date of the last revision of the document, all of that kind of stuff. Okay, so let's go ahead and insert a footer, and it'll erase our page numbers, and then we'll put our page numbers back.
We do have a question, if I can ask it.
Absolutely.
Someone says, if I want to change the top and bottom margins, they have to be smaller than the header and footer sizes, correct?
Yeah, so you can change your margin sizes along with your header and footer, but your margin sizes do have to leave enough room for you to have the header and footer if you need it, if that makes sense. So for example, here, my header, if you notice, the header is going to appear in that first inch, which is where those margins are. If I change my margins by going up to layout, margins, and say I make them, the really tiny ones, which we used before, that will still work, but you can see how it's adjusted the header. And then if I show you, if we go to file for print preview, you see now with those really minimal margins, hopefully you can see this, how this has changed, how close the header is to the beginning of my text. Give me just a second. I'm going to move my the other way so you can see this a little better. Let me jump. Oops, sorry. I'm going to jump out just a little bit. But if you see how close the Mr. Smith appears to the wonderful world of Wizard of Oz, if that's the title of my paper, it does push it very close. So you have to play around a little bit with making sure you have enough padding in there for your header and footer so that they look okay, depending on how you've adjusted the margins. But yeah, you can play around with that. You can play around with how close your margins are to it. Yeah. Does that answer the question? Hoping.
I think so. And I think you made a good point about playing around. Sometimes it just takes some practice to figure out what is affecting what as you change it.
Yeah, so for example, if I do the narrow margin, which is the 0.5, instead of the really narrow margins at 0.17, and we do 0.5 instead, and then you go back to looking at the print preview, you'll see it's changed it a little bit. So it's not quite as close, but it's still pretty close to there. So it's good to kind of play around with those a little bit to make it look how you want it to look. Now, the other way I can manipulate that is, of course, I could take my title and do a hard return so that it actually creates that space between the title and the header as well. So it kind of depends on how much space you need to control within the page too, to make it look okay. All right. Hopefully that helps answer that question.
Yes, I believe it does. They say thank you.
Okay, perfect. I'm going to go ahead and insert a footer here so you can watch what happens to the page numbers. So if I insert a footer after I've already put in my page number, but I pick the blank one here with just text on the left-hand side, notice that once that I've put that footer in, that's actually erased my page numbers because the page numbers were also part of the footer. So if I do something over here, like let's say, anytime I get an excuse to write, 222022, right? And then I close the header footer. You'll notice now that I only have this and I don't have my page numbers. So make sure that if you're adding your page numbers, if you've got both a header and a footer, insert, and you do page number, and we do it at the bottom of the page and the right-hand side. And then we still want that February footer to be there. You have to put them in at the same time. So you have to pick your footer. Oops, sorry, hold on one second. Close header and footer, insert, footer, and pick one that has the 3 columns. And then you can say, 2022, and then I can type over here and I can put, page 1 or however I want to do it. So you can also do it that's one way you can do it, where you can go in and fix it that way. But now then you're going to want to make sure that each one of these changes because you've manually done it like that. Okay. Now the other way you can do it too is if you switched your page number somewhere else and you still wanted them to go alphanumerically, you can also come down here. Oops, I'm gonna come into my footer, okay, and then come up to insert, page number, bottom of the page, and then pick format page numbers, and you can start at a specific number there, and then hit OK. And then it will start it at page 2 instead of start 1. Okay, so that's page numbers. So that is something to consider when you're inserting and working with headers and footers and page numbers, is you do want to pay attention to whether or not you want more in your footer and you still want to be able to have page numbers. So that's one of those things about where you consider which thing you're prioritizing most when you put them together.
We do have a raised hand.
Sure.
So let me let them talk.
Okay.
All right, they should be getting a notification to unmute their microphone. So if someone out there is seeing that, you can feel free to do that and speak your question. Okay, I'm not sure if if they meant to press that, but they're not unmuting. There is another
Sure.
hand raised, but
Okay.
it's from the same person that I'm not able to unmute, so I'll just see if they can ask their question another way. Oh wait,
Sure.
here we go. Did you
Hello?
have a question?
Just can you fixing a voice, please?
I'm sorry, can we fix?
Yeah, I listen bad. You micro. Can you fixing your voice?
Can you not hear us?
Yeah, I listen good. I listen bad.
You might try to turn the volume up on your computer.
Okay.
Yeah, see if that'll help too. And again, it is recorded, so we can go. And if you don't have transcripts, you can put the transcripts on too,
Okay.
because that might help as well.
Any other question we can help answer?
No, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Okay,
Okay.
there is another question that
Sure.
is, what is the best way to put a line across above the footer?
So are you interested in putting just some way to determine that it's the end of something without the footer? Because when you go to print, the footer is going to be pretty obvious that it's the footer at the top and the for the header, and at the bottom for the footer, because it'll be in a slightly different color. But if you want it to be very obvious, you can do that. You can put you can physically put like a line across it like this. Is that kind of what you're looking for? I don't know if they can give us a little bit more.
They haven't written back yet. That would be
Okay.
my guess.
So yes, you can kind of artificially create a distinction like that if you want. You can kind of manipulate where it is text-wise too. And you can insert, if you wanted a page, you could do a page break, but the page break is going to break the whole to another page. So it's not the same as just like putting a line there. You can, what I usually do if I'm doing that is I just hold down the shift key and use the underscore key to make something that looks like a line like this. Or, some ways people will do it with like tabbing in and then putting some asterisks in there like this, and then using like the asterisk key like that if you want. That would just be a way to manipulate it so that it is really obvious that what's underneath is the footer. But most people will know that the footer is down at the bottom where it has like the page numbers and stuff.
They said that when they revise the text, the lines move around. Of course, that happens because your text is always moving.
Correct.
And they're asking if they can put a line in the footer. I don't know if you can. I think you can only pick from the certain types of footers that Word has already. I don't know if there is a way to put a line in a footer.
You can do something like this. I'm not sure if that's exactly what you're looking for. So your footer can be more than one line of text. It can be a couple of lines of, I could push it all the way there and then the text would move. So if my footer had to be like, say, my address, all of that had to be in the footer, it could be. And you would just have to make your footer a little bit bigger like that. And then it would have more lines to it. You can also have a situation where you need to wrap your footer. So if you're noticing right now, this is me. I am just deleting out those extra spaces and then putting in the space bar here. And then I can type whatever I need to. And then it'll wrap. So if you see here, it'll wrap down to the next line within the footer. So yeah, you can play around with that and adjust it a little bit based on what you need and how much stuff you have to put in the footer. But as far as a line that designates the footer, I would myself try to create it this way. If you're looking to make sure that all of your text stays on a certain spot or a certain page, that's when the page breaks might come in handy. Because a page break is basically a chance to end the current page early or somewhere else before it starts to wrap the text and move to the next page. We aren't really covering page breaks, but that's what those page breaks are for and what they do.
They say thank you, so I think you helped answer the question.
Okay, perfect, good. Yeah, page breaks can come in handy when you're working with larger documents where you want to make sure a certain amount of text stays on one page and doesn't wrap to the next page. So that can be useful in those cases, but it does kind of mess with formatting a little bit too. So you want to be careful and make sure that you definitely proof the document when you print it, because sometimes things get a little wonky with the page breaks. So, okay, so that's working with headers and footers and page numbers. The next section we're going to work with is inserting images. And images can go anywhere on your page in Microsoft Word. The tricky thing with images, though, is that you do have to define where you're going to put the text. If you're going to put the text next to the image, if you're going to put it behind, in front of, wrap it around. So we're going to play with that here real quick. And I'm going to go ahead and insert an image. And wherever your cursor, the other thing to know about the insert tab in general is wherever your cursor is, immediately to the right of that is where something is going to be inserted. So if I was to insert a picture right now, it would insert to the right of the E in Cyclone. Okay, so to insert a picture, I can come up here to insert and pictures. And then I'm going to pick this picture that just says kittens, because of course it's kittens. And we love kittens around here. So we're going to put kittens in here and I'm going to hit insert. And now you'll notice where it put it. Here's the E in Cyclone. Right next to the E in Cyclone is where those kitty cats dropped. Okay. So if that's not where I want them, I'm going to, and I'll teach you how to delete in just a second, but I'm going to go ahead and delete that out. So we get an idea of how it looks when it's around text. I'm actually going to insert it over here in front of the word Dorothy. Okay. We're going to go insert pictures, kittens. Okay. 1 second. Okay. And we're going to insert that. Okay. So now if you see, I've inserted because my cursor was to the left of Dorothy, it inserted the picture to the left of where my cursor was. Okay. So just be sure that when you're going to insert anything like images, text box, shapes, whatever you're doing, you want to make sure that where your cursor is where it's going to paste. Okay. Okay. So this picture is going to insert into the document with the left top corner oriented where your cursor is placed in the document, or in this case, the bottom right. So just make sure it's coordinated where you want it to for orientation. Okay. Now there's a bunch of stuff we can do with our image and a bunch of stuff we can do with our text on the other side of the image. When I click on the image, you'll notice I get what we call the bounding box, which is these little white dots on each of the corners and in the middle of each of the sides. Those bounding boxes are what help you resize the image and help you know that you've selected the image. Up above it, the little circle with an arrow, this allows you to rotate the image. So if I wanted to rotate the image and turn it a little bit one way or the other, I can use this circle up here to accomplish that. Okay, we're not quite at the point where we're going to try to reorient the image or anything, but we are going to work with how our text is going to respond to it. And I am going to make it so that you can see when I'm up here in the top corner, can everyone see the little box that's just to the right that says layout options to choose how our object interacts with the text around it? It looks like a little, like a parentheses inside some text, or a little like half circle, I guess, inside some text over here. Can you see that, Rebecca?
Yes.
Where I am? Okay. So if I click on this, I'm going to get my layout options. And this is how my picture is going to interact with my text. Okay. So if I select in line with text and we have more text, so let me go ahead and I'm going to post it let's put it here instead. So I'm going to put it where it says there are floor walls, so you can really see how this is going to interact with the text. And we're going to insert pictures, pick our kitten and insert it. Okay, so now you can see it's inserted exactly in front of the T because that's where my cursor was. All right, and there's going to be a lot of extra space. Let me see if I can make this a little bit smaller so we can see a little bit better how it is on the page. Okay, so does everyone see that there's a lot of open space on the left-hand side here right now as I've put the picture in? And this is in line with text, okay? If I do it with text wrapping, where it's square, note that now all of that space on the white space over here is no longer there because we've now got our image inside wrapping with our text, okay? There are several different ways you can do pictures with inline text with text wrapping, and we're going to go over each one in just a minute. And then you can also fix the position on the page, which means you're going to give it the exact designated place where you want the image to be with an anchor. We'll talk about that in just a second. So first I want to show you all the different versions of text wrapping. So this is square. This is tight. So you'll notice there's not a whole lot of difference. You can see on the right-hand side here, just a little bit of difference between square and tight. If I do through, though, you can see it gets a little, it's not that big of a difference between those either. Top and bottom definitely changes how it looks. Because again, with top and bottom, you end up with more of that white space on either side. Going through means basically that your image is behind your text or can be in front of your text. So in this case, that's not very, behind and in front of is not very helpful because of course, if I'm behind it, I can't read the text. And if I'm in front of it, I can't read the text. So we know we want to put it somewhere where we have some text wrapping, and maybe we want it so that it's actually over on the side. And if you notice if I move, and this is, okay, so we're going to move to, I'm going to move my subtitles here for a second, sorry. Okay, so now if I want to manipulate my photo, my image here, and move it around so that I can make that text wrapping work for me in a way that makes sense and makes it move where I need it to move on the page, I can move my image, okay? So to move my image, I'm going to click on my image and select it. And then you'll notice I get this, my cursor, if you can see it, I hope you can see that there's an arrow and then there's 4 arrows going in the cardinal directions and then the big cursor over the top of it. Can you see that? I don't know if you can see it or not. If you can't see it, at least in your handout, there's a big icon for it.
I can see it.
Okay, this means that I have now, I'm going to hold down my left mouse button and now I can slide my image to the right or left like this. And you'll notice that the text just follows along with it because we're using text wrapping. Okay, so if it's easier to have it over here on this side so that it doesn't break up the text too much, I can do it that way. I can move it up and down like this, and then it won't break the text in a weird way. Okay. Now, the way I have it right now, I still kind of have this one line down here that's kind of hanging out down below. To fix that, I could move it so more things are hanging out down there. I could move it so things are hanging out above and not below. Or I could also resize my image so that my image is a little bit smaller and everything will fit kind of nicely across from it. So to resize your image, you can grab one of your little bounding boxes, these little white points, and then move your image to resize it. And to resize it, I usually grab from down in the bottom right corner, but you could grab from any corner. If you grab in the middle, you see how it smooshes, skews the aspect ratio, so it makes it all smooshy in like that. You can do that if you want, But just know that the proportions, if you want to keep the proportions of your image the same, it's a little easier to grab from the bottom and hold down your shift key, and that'll keep the proportions and what we call the ratio the same, okay? And now I've resized that image. So now everything here, all of the text aligns with that image, okay? So that's resizing and moving the image. Any questions about resizing or moving images or placing them?
I don't see any so far, but I'll let you know.
Okay, there's other things we can do to our images where we can format them so that they look nice or however we want them to look. So to format the picture, I'm going to go ahead and select it, and then I can right click on it. So remember when we've talked before about how right click allows you to do something else, it gives you more options. So left click is to select it, right click lets me do other things with it. So once I've done a right click here, I can come down to, I can save the picture, I can change it, I can bring it to the front or send it to the back. And remember, that's when it moves back and forward. So something else could be in front of it. I can insert a caption. I can change how the text is wrapping around it, either by wrap text down here, or again, by using our little icon here that looks like the little half circle with some lines behind it. I can change the size and position, and I can format the picture. So we're going to spend a little time with formatting picture. Okay, so when you do format picture, brings up another dialog box over here where we can change things about the picture. So we can give it a shadow with a certain color if we want. So let's say we're going to give it a gray shadow. Does everyone see how now there's this tiny little shadow below the image right there, just to makes it stand out just a little bit more. We can do a whole reflection if we want. We can give it a little glow. We can give it an artistic effect. Let's see, I can make it look more like a canvas. Did everyone see what I did there? So I went to this one that says artistic effects. And then from this pull down screen right here, I picked the texturizer and made it kind of like a canvas, but I could pick something else too. And when you hover over it, it will tell you what it looks like. So this is marker. This is film grain, mosaic bubbles, which is kind of fun. So you get the idea. And by the way, this image is an image from a creator that licensed their image on Pixabay, which means it's free for anyone to use in demonstrative purposes like this. So we can do pastels. So you get the idea. And then this is kind of fun. I forget what this one is called. I think it's like neon glow or something, glow edges. So there's your glow edges, black and white, artistic effects. That's photocopy. So you get the idea, right? You can do pencil sketch, which is kind of fun, or none. Okay, so those are artistic effects. So if you're putting together something where you want to have a little bit more of a look to your picture, you could. Okay. Now that's just one section here of how you can format your picture as well. If you want to give it a fill or a line or a gradient or anything like that, you can do that here. Gradient fill, if you want to see what that looks like. Let's do, and color, let's pick white. Okay, just to see what it looks like. And we'll do, so that's going to change it so that it starts kind of light and then gets darker and darker and darker. And we can do a solid line. And then let's see, transparency. So we can change a bunch of stuff about how it looks. Okay. We could also add a text box below or above it. And we can actually do some color correction. We can change the brightness like this, or the contrast. So these are all things that if you had, a more advanced photo editing program like Photoshop or any of those like what is it? I know there's quite a few of them that you can do online. You can do things like this too before you even put your picture in here. But you can also use Microsoft Word to do some general editing too. Okay, and then you can also crop your image. So if you wanted to crop your image, you can change. And if you do this, notice how by cropping it or changing my picture position, I can go in and out. And I can also change this way so that maybe I just want the one kitty like this. We'll take out the other kitty. And so I can do all of these editing things. Okay. Okay. Any questions about changing or formatting a picture?
I don't see anything.
Okay. So this is one big way that you can do these kinds of things. There's also a quick way to crop that I prefer rather than going into the format picture box down below. If you notice up here where it says style and crop, if you pick crop, you can get these black edges here, which allow you to also kind of fine tune your crop. So if we start with our full image again, and we want to crop, the one cat, we can do again, just like this. And then once you click outside, that'll be where your crop is. Okay. And I kind of prefer that crop where I have these handlebars that I can use instead of the format picture one where you have to be more specific about exactly where your offsets and your X and Y axes are. Okay. I hope that makes sense. So I kind of prefer to do it where I just get the little box, the little pull handles here. Okay.
It does take practice. I do that pretty often with cropping, and even I make mistakes. So it does take practice.
Yeah. And remember your edit undo, it's this button up here that is to the left, that's undo. To redo something is the button that goes to the right, or Control Z for undo as a keyboard shortcut. So if I hit Control Z here, it'll let me back up a number of steps. I think it might be something like five steps back. Okay. Any other questions about inserting images or pictures?
I don't see any.
Okay, so Word is, there are other Microsoft products that do images too, like PowerPoint and Publisher and things like that. But if you're inserting something quick, or if you're doing something like a tutorial like we do, maybe you want to create a one-page quick diagram of how to do something or directions or something, and you want to be able to show people visually how to do something. This is one way that you could do that. Okay. All right. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to play with inserting text boxes. And text boxes are nice because they work like independent objects from each other. So instead of having a whole paragraph of text like this, that you would have to manipulate all of the text at once, you can insert a text box, which allows you to control how much text you're putting together and control just that little box of text. So if we were to insert, let's go ahead and take Wonderful World, Wonderful Wizard of Oz, and we're going to make a text box instead. So if I go to Insert again, and then you'll see there's a section over here. So illustrate. So we've got pages, tables, illustrations, add-ins, media, links, comments, header and footer, and then text and symbols. And we're going to work with symbols a little bit later, but we're going to start with text, and we're going to pick a text box. So I'm going to pick text box, and then the text box will pull up possibilities for styles, just like we had for the header and footer, where you could pick certain styles for your text box, or you can just pick a simple text box. So we're going to start with a simple one, and I'm just going to pick a simple text box. So you can see here where it says, grab your reader's attention with a quote, or use a space to emphasize a key point. Or if you're doing a tutorial, you put in step 1 and put it in here. So we're going to put our title So I'm going to use this. We're going to use this for our title. Okay, so now I can resize my text box, and I'll show you how I did that in just a moment. I'm just going to delete out my wonderful Wizard of Oz here. That is our other text that we don't need anymore because we've now made it this way. So we'll delete that out. So now here's my text box. If I want to resize my text box, I do it the same way I would resize an image, where I'd grab the side of the bounding box and move it up or down to make it larger or smaller, okay, and or taller. Okay, so I can do all of that with it. Okay, now if I don't want, you see how this right now it has a little box around it. If I didn't want that box, that is something I can change in formatting of my text box. So just like with your pictures, you can also resize, move, and format your text boxes. So we've done a resize. Let's make it a little bit bigger. And I'm going to change the size of my text since I'm making my text box a little bit bigger. And it's the title. So I'm going to make it, let's make it like 22-point font. Okay. Wonderful Wizard of Oz. Here we go. Okay. So now I've just made it bigger so that it's more obvious. And we can move let's move chapter 1 down like that. And then I can change if it has this bounding box on it or not, if it has a border, again, and I can move it. So if I wanted it to be up at the top, on the left or the right, in this case, I'm going to leave it kind of in the middle. But let's go ahead and play with this a little bit. And what I can do is if I right click, just like what I did with the picture, when I right clicked on it, I got more options of what I can do to change it, how I can manipulate it and make it look different. Okay, so when I do that here, I have the option to do something with style, fill, or outline. Those are the 3 things up here at the top. Style allows me to pick from different styles of how I want this text box to look. So I could make it look more interesting, shall we say. So let's say I'll pick blue, for example. Now it has this style where it's blue background with white text. If I don't like that, I can say, I don't really like that. Let's just make it black and white. I could also pick individually to fill the box with a different color. If I wanted to do, say, like blue or whatever, and then, or if I wanted to do a gradient, this is what we were trying to do with gradient. It's a little more obvious this way, where it starts light and gets dark, or starts dark and gets light as a gradient. And you can play around with it. You can make a texture. So there's a fun texture for my title, right? I can also do an outline. This is where I get that weighted border. Let's make a very thick weighted border. So outline, thick border with a weight of 6 points, and it's black, or I can change the color up here in the outline. If you see where I'm hovering over it and it's changing, hoping you can see that. So now I've made it yellow instead. Okay, so that is basically manipulating a text box. Okay, text boxes do have advantages if you're for certain kinds of uses, like if you're making a holiday card, for example, or you want something that's very graphically interesting, you can certainly do that with text boxes like that. Any questions with text boxes?
I haven't seen any.
Okay, so let's go ahead and move on to shapes then. So we're going to insert a shape, and it's going to work. You're going to see it's going to be very similar to how we insert and manipulate our text boxes and our images. Okay, so let's go ahead and insert, coming up to our insert tab. And then where do you think we go for shapes? Does anyone see shapes right off the bat and can tell me what group it's in? You can post it in the chat if you'd like. I'll give you a hint because I'll walk my cursor over to it.
I don't see any messages in the chat.
Okay, so we're on the insert tab, and we've worked with pictures that are from our computer. And then just to the right of that, we can also work with shapes. So the shapes are ready-made shapes like arrows, squares, circles, hearts, all sorts of things that you can put into your document. So when I was mentioning that we could create a, like a step-by-step tutorial on how to do something, maybe you'd want arrows that you could point something out to someone. Today though, since we just had a holiday, let's see if maybe we have a shape that we want to use. So we could use lines, rectangles, basic shapes. Here's a basic shape. So I pick my shape. Okay, so if you see, I selected the heart and I picked it, and now it's got a gray bounding box around it. That's because I've selected it. But now the thing with shapes is that you actually have to go ahead and draw the shape by holding down your left mouse button and dragging it across your page to create your shape. So if I wanted to, let's say I'm going to put a heart over this cat's face. So you see how I'm dragging it across? And then when I let go, that's going to make that shape for me. Okay. And then again, I can manipulate it and move it around as long as it's selected. So to select it, I'm just going to come over here with my left mouse button, tap in the middle, and select this shape. Now I can resize it again with the bounding box, these little points, the handle points. So I can come down here, hold down when it turns into an arrow going to the right and or going up and down, kind of to the upper left and lower right. That is when you can resize. So I can make it smaller or make it bigger by doing that. I can also manipulate the proportions, or if I hold down the shift key, it'll stay in the same proportions. Okay. Okay, and then I can move it around. All right, any questions about inserting a shape?
I don't see any.
Okay, the next thing I can do with the shape, of course, is like I've done with the other things, I can change how it looks. So I can either right click and come down to where it says format shape, or as you notice up here, we have our design tab again, where it says format under drawing tools, because we drew this shape on. So we get drawing tools and we have our shape styles and then the fill. So right now the shape fill is blue, but if I want, I could make it purple. And if I wanted to give it an outline, again, I could give it a 6-point weighted outline, and it would be in this blue color. And then I can do the same thing we did with pictures, where I can give it a shadow effect, a reflection or a glow, rotations, bevels, all sorts of fun stuff. Or you can make presets where I could pick it like this and it would immediately make that outline, the border, white. Okay, so there's lots of fun stuff you can do with these things. And I encourage you to play around with them a little bit and start to kind of create your own fun shapes and move things around and format them however you want, just to get an idea, because this also will help with your mouse dexterity too, to move things exactly and position them exactly how you want them on the page. Will also help you get more comfortable with mousing and fine-tuning that mouse practice. Okay. Any other questions about shapes, text boxes? We could do word art too. I don't think I put that in there, but word art is also fun. Let me show you that real quick. So let's say we're going to change chapter 1, the cyclone. I'm going to insert and I'm going to pick word art. So we have our illustrations over here and we have our text over here. So one of the things you can do with your text is called word art. And it's this little A that's kind of tilted. So it's going to add some artistic flair. So we can go to, basically when we added we can make specifically like a beveled fun text. So make it the cyclone. like that. And then we don't need this anymore. Can take that out and we'll just move the cyclone, which is our word art. We'll put a space in here. Give another space below before Dorothy has to come into play. And we can move the cyclone right there. And this is word art. So word art allows it to have like a stylized, certain stylized things that you can pick from. So on the regular home screen, on the home tab, the word art shows up as this little A with a blue outline for the text effects and typography. And you can see that's where you get it to. So we can change it to the cyclone like that. Okay, that's word art. Very similar to that. Okay. Questions, comments so far?
I don't see any.
So far, so good. All right. Okay. The next thing I want to show is how to delete these things. Because what if you did it and you were like, I don't like it. So to delete, very simple to delete. You just have to make sure, and with the case of word art like this, you just have to make sure you're on the outside of the box, not the inside. So when I'm inside the box, you see how the cursor is blinking between the L and the O? That's because I'm inside that text box, which allows me to do things like change the text itself. But in order to delete it, I have to be, so I can click here and you see now I have this bounding box around it. That's gray, like a dark gray. That means I've selected that smart object or the text, not just the text, but the bounding box and the whole text box. Okay. Not just the text itself, which would be here, but also the box around it. Okay. And if I want to delete it, all I have to do is hit the delete key. And it goes away. Okay. Same with Wonderful Wizard of Oz. If I'm in here, I'm only deleting, and I hit delete, I'm just deleting the D. But if I'm on the top where you see this dotted line up here, let me make this a little bit bigger so it's easier to see. Is that easier to see? I hope so.
Yes.
Okay, so this dotted line here is what happens when you're inside working with your text and typing or deleting things there. If you click on that dotted line, so it gives you the dark gray bounding box, that means you've selected the object as a whole. And then to delete it, all I have to do is hit the delete key. And that'll delete it out. Okay. If I want to come down to the heart here that we did some fun stuff with, and let me go ahead and show you how to rotate it too, since I mentioned that. Up here, this circle, it looks almost like to me, it almost looks like a recycle symbol, but that's the rotate button. And if I want to rotate this, all I have to do is hold down my mouse, left mouse button, and I can turn it to the right or the left, or even all the way upside down or over to the side here. Okay, so that's rotating too. Okay, now to delete, again, if I zoom in a little bit, I don't know how well you'll see the gray bounding box around it this time, but because it's on an image. But if you see, when I don't have the bounding box around it, I can't select it because I haven't selected the heart. Once I've selected the heart, delete, we'll take the heart away. Okay. Okay. Same thing for the image. If I want to delete the image, just have to select it and then hit the delete key. And that'll delete out my image. Okay. So
yes. Someone asks, where do I go to put the color behind the title words?
Yes. So if I come back up here and I'm going to do insert, and we're going to pick a text box. We're going to make it simple. We're going to call it Wizard of Oz. Like this. Now this is just using a text box, right? There's a couple of different ways we can do this. We're just going to start with a text box. And then I'm going to just make it a little bit bigger so it's easier to see. So like this. Okay, now if I want to change how this looks, let me zoom in a little bit so you can see a little bit better. Whoops, okay. And I want to change how this looks. I can select the box around it and then right click and do format shape down here, or up here at the top where it says style, fill, and outline. These are the ways I can manipulate how things look. So if I pick fill, that's going to fill behind the text and give it a background of some kind. So if I wanted it to be green, I could pick green. If I wanted a different color, pick fill and choose, you know, peach or orange or whatever color you want. In this case, let's stick with green. If I want to have the box around it be a different color, I can select outline and then give it an outline in a different color. Let's pick purple. Now it's kind of a thin purple outline right now, but if I select up here an outline and then weight, I can make it thicker, up to like 6 points of thickness. Okay. And then again, I can adjust how it looks. Okay. Now, if you want to put texture in there, you can also do texture, and that would be come down to format shape. And then down here where it says picture or texture fill, then I could fill it with a texture too. So I could do, for example, picture or texture fill. And then I can pick from here and pick a color, or I can also pick from the background reflections and shadows and things like that. Okay. Does that answer the question? I'm hoping it does. For how to put a fill.
Yeah, they say thank you.
Okay, perfect. And you can do that with shapes too. So not just with text boxes, but also with the shapes. So if I insert a shape over here and I pick, let's pick a smiley face. So I'm gonna put a smiley face over here like this. Then I can change and do the same thing. I can do it up here in the shape styles menu, or if I right click, style, fill, and outline. So fill, outline, effects, those are the same things there. So if I pick fill, let's say I want to make it yellow, I want to give it an outline, and I want to make that blue. I want to make it a little thicker, I can go 3 points. I could also make it dashes instead of, and make it, that's kind of an interesting smiley face with the dash lines there. Maybe that one. And you can give it dashes instead too. Okay, so I encourage you to play around with that and keep doing the right click and see what kinds of options you get for things that you can do and things you can manipulate about your shapes and your text. Mostly because it's fun to play with. And of course, this is probably not what I would actually do for a professional presentation, of course, but if I did want to call attention to something like in a handout or an instructional booklet or something, I might use arrows. I might use red color, shapes, things like that. Okay. All right. So I was going to do one last insert thing where we could talk about symbols and special characters, because there are times where you need to be able to insert, say you have a word in another language and you need to insert an umlaut or a tilde or something like that. There are ways to do that. And the easiest way, I think, to do it is to come to insert. And over here on the far right, you have equation and symbol. So I'll go ahead and let's say we're inserting like a trademark symbol. So what are we going to trademark? Let's trademark the word wagon. So let's say the word wagon is actually a copyrighted term now. So I would go up to in symbol, and then you're going to have some that you frequently use. That'll be up here, but you can go into more symbols and you'll get a whole list of symbols that you can use. And if we see right here, here's recently used, this is the copyright symbol. All I have to do is select it and say insert. And if you notice, it has inserted it under near behind or to the right of wagon. Okay, so it's inserting a symbol. Did everyone see that? Did you see that pop up, Rebecca? For symbol?
Yes, I did.
Okay, good. So when you go to symbol, more symbols, you also have special characters. So if you were looking to do like an M dash or an N dash, which are the shorter dashes, or for example, the copyright, registered, trademark symbols. Some of these special symbols are in here, the special characters, and you can insert them the same way. Okay. You can also create shortcut keys that will allow you to create these automatically. So if you find that you're often using certain symbols from another language, for example, like maybe the S set from German, you can create a special shortcut key that will get you to that symbol. So if I know that I always I have to insert the copyright key a bunch of times. Well, the specific keyboard sequence right now is Alt plus Control plus C will get me that copyright symbol. So if you find you use, say, umlauts or accent grave or accent aigu or whatever a lot, you can specify a command to give you a keyboard shortcut so that you can put it in there too, instead of having to come in here every time and do, click symbol, find it, hunt for it on this list. And then you might even, have to hunt for it in these other lists of Latin and supplemental and things. If it's not one that, if it's one that you use a lot and you'd rather have a keyboard shortcut, you can make one. Okay. Any questions about that? And inserting a special character?
I don't see
Or
anything.
symbol? Okay. So I just want people to know you can, because I took German in high school, so I had to put the S set in a lot of things. And rather than always having to come in here and go recently used symbols, click on it, insert it, I just created a shortcut key. So it was easier to do it as I was typing. So
I used to do the same. I took French, so I had all the accent marks, accent aigu and accent grave.
Yeah, because the way our keyboards are set up, if you were in those countries with those languages, their keyboards would be set up possibly to have those as actual keys on the keyboard that you would just hit. But here you have to basically create it. So, okay. Other questions? Anything else?
I don't see anything so far.
Anything you'd like to have demoed again?
Yeah, does anybody want to see anything demonstrated a second time? Or if you have a specific question that we didn't cover for Word, because this is our last webinar covering Word, please ask that question too, because I know some people come in and they're like, okay, I want to make sure I get this specific question answered.
Yes, and we do want to make sure we can help with those as well. And I do have, if not, I have a couple of resources to point y'all to for more Word learning, if you would like.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and pull those up? I don't see
So
any questions so far, but I'll let you know
I'll
if any
stop
pop up.
sharing that. And then let me go ahead and pull back up the PowerPoint here. And we'll go ahead and jump down. So in the handout, we walk through the basics of where everything is. So just what we covered in our live demo and how to pick, for resizing, how to pick the bounding box circles to resize and to format and crop. And I do honestly prefer cropping this way, where I just have the little, what I call the black crop handles, rather than going in and trying to do it with the XY axis stuff. So, and then text boxes and resizing text boxes. So here's what that arrow is supposed to look like when you're resizing something, where it goes to the left and the right, but also up and down at the same time. And then when you're moving, it should look like this, where it's got the arrows going in the 4 directions when you're trying to move them. And then for shapes, and if there's a shape you need that isn't there, you do have capability of adding, or you can, copy and paste shapes that don't exist in there. And then it just treats them like an image that's coming from an outside source. And you can use it that way. So, okay, and delete them fully. And then characters. And then here are the additional resources. So we have something called Gale Courses, which is a resource that you can use with a Champaign card. And there are a number of courses for Microsoft Word. There's a beginner, an intermediate, and an advanced class. Same for Excel. I'm not sure about PowerPoint, I didn't look, but there's 6-week courses where they walk you through a whole bunch of different ways to do things. And they have weekly lessons that you can do and activities. And you can get to that by going to champaign.org/Gale-courses. We also have access to LinkedIn Learning, which has a bunch of video tutorials that you can take. There's also training on Microsoft's website that's usually pretty good as well. And then our standard is the GCF learnfree.org, and they have a tutorial for Microsoft Word as well. So I want to make sure I mention those. And then, of course, we also have our Book a Librarian service where you can schedule a one-on-one consultation with a librarian, and we can walk you through either certain aspects of Word or Excel or PowerPoint or pretty much anything that we teach for the technology workshops and other things. And you can always schedule those at champaign.org/bookalibrarian. You can reach out to us via live chat or via email. And then there's also that YouTube channel that we mentioned, where if you want to watch part 1 or part 2 of the Microsoft Word series or any of our other tech workshop videos, they are up there, champaign.org/YouTube. And then I do want to mention one of our upcoming workshops. There are still spaces in our video edits, mobile apps for video making class. It's going to be taught by an outside instructor, Adam Ron. He owns a video production studio here in town. And that will be on Monday, the 28th at 6:30. It should be a lot of fun. He's a really wonderful instructor. And it's all apps that you can download for free for your phone to get started. So even if you don't have to have a lot of technical skill on the computer to do these workshops. You can, if you have an Android phone or an iPhone, you can come and attend this workshop and learn about some different apps where you could make short little videos. And I should say, if you come and learn how to make some short little videos with these apps, then that segues very easily into our March workshops that starts with TikTok, which TikTok is almost exclusively short videos that people have made using their phones or tablets. So you can learn how to make some cool edits to videos and then put it to use in TikTok if you wanted. The other classes in March will be Excel and PowerPoint. So hopefully you can join us for those. Those will all be online through March. And then we're hoping to have in-person programming start again in April. Just depends on how things go, but we'll keep you posted. And we will, of course, put that out and publish everything as we know more. So, all right. And then here's my contact information too, if you want to reach out to me directly. And again, if you have questions, I'll jump out of the...
We do have another question.
Sure, yes.
Someone is asking, how do I make individual labels on a sheet of labels?
Yes, so with Word, let me jump into a Word document here. I'm going to share this real quick, and I can kind of walk you through part of the process. Let me get out of these other things first. Save that. Okay, so I'm going to jump into a new Word document. Okay, and then I'll try to share this and we can see if I can walk you through it. So for example, if you were, say, making address labels, perhaps for holiday cards, or you needed to use labels for some sort of packaging or something or whatever, you can either look for an online template too, where you could put in labels like that and see what comes up, and then pick one of these. And a lot of times it just has to match if you're going to go buy one in person. So I know places like Staples and Office Max have the pre-made sticky labels. And as long as you're picking the brand over here. So for example, I know Avery is one of the big brands. And so for example, here's return address labels. And it works with specific Avery label sheets. You can just hit create. And then here it is. And then as soon as you change the first one, and you put in, because this one is set up to be return address labels. And then we could put 200 West Green Street and Champaign, Illinois, 61822. Like that. Oops, I didn't mean to put that. Like that. It'll automatically change it for all of them. So this is all 80 labels done right away. The margins, you can see the margins are already set and defined for that particular Avery label. That will work with it. If you don't want to do it via the template like this, though, you can also do it in your layout, where you specifically pick how big to make each of the labels too. But I find it's a lot easier to go and just pick the one that matches the one that you've gotten from the store for labels. I'm hoping that was kind of what you were looking for.
I'll put in a link
I can show it again too.
to that sort of stuff in the follow-up email as well.
Yes.
Sometimes it can get sort of complicated.
Yeah. So as long as you, if you're picking up a pack of labels that are from a certain brand, Microsoft Word will likely have a template that you can use, that you can get into from that open template section and put it in there. And if not, it's easy enough to go into mailings up here and then pick. So mailings is one of the tabs at the top, and then pick from create, pick labels. And then you can create it here too on your own. Okay. Hoping that helps. You can also do envelopes. So if you were wanting to print, so if you go to the bank and get, or to the like Office Max or Staples or whatever and get the longer letters, you can feed those into your printer as well and have all of the return address label printed right on the envelopes too, using Microsoft Word and a printer.
They're saying they want to make different labels on each blank. So
Okay.
there is a way you can, like, if they were trying to, like, you know, I don't know, make Christmas card labels or something, there is a way you can do that.
Yep. So mail merge is your friend if you want to do that. And what you can do is we can send you a follow-up video. Essentially what you do is, if you have your contacts somewhere like in an Excel spreadsheet, which, speaking of Excel, we're going to be doing that in March. So hang out with us then, and we can teach you how to make the addresses. And then you do a mail merge, which basically merges all of those addresses into the labels and lets you do each label as a separate address. Yeah, that one's a little bit more complex of a process, but there's lots of tutorials out there online that you can watch to get that process down. But it does use something called mail merge, where you make labels with addresses. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's pretty handy. If you do anything like if you do office work where you have to address mass mailings or things like that, it's super helpful.
Yes, I used to have to do that, and I don't miss it. I'll say that.
Yeah. Yeah. If it's once a year, I'm fine with it. But yeah, it can get cumbersome at times. But that is one way to kind of simplify the process for you, where you make the computer do most of the work for you. So, okay. And then basically you can, select recipients, make a list, and then import it in there. So, and that's something we could do if you wanted to book a librarian appointment too, how to make labels with, a certain, like an address contact list. We could walk you through that too. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Okay, I'll go ahead and stop sharing that one. Other questions or things you'd like us to teach you? And if you have things that you'd like to learn that you think we should include in these 3 sessions, when you get the follow-up email, it will have a little spot for a feedback survey. We do have a spot on that form for future classes that you think we should teach. We always take those into consideration. We always try to either add something that you think is important into the existing workshops or add something new. Maybe there's a Microsoft Word 4 that covers some other topics that people are interested in. So please give us that feedback if you'd like. So.
I don't see any other questions. unless, you know, if someone's typing in chat right now or they want to raise their hand.
Okay.
Otherwise, I think we will, I think next week is actually TikTok. So I'll be
Yes.
teaching TikTok.
Rebecca will be teaching TikTok, and she does a really good job. We've done it once before, and she did a great job with it. If you're at all curious, about TikTok, and what it does and what happens and what people use it for.
It's all the rage nowadays.
It is. It's very popular right now.
All right. I don't see any more questions, so we'll go ahead and call it a day. Thank you, everybody, for coming today. We hope to see you soon. Bye.
Bye, everyone.